genealogy researchers and we like to perform cemetery research, right? But are you getting and documenting all of the photographs that you need to be taking when you're there? Don't worry if you're not, because I'm here to help. I'm Lisa with Are You My Cousin, where I strive to take the overwhelm out of your genealogy research. Okay, so it's a beautiful weather this time of year as I'm starting to get back outside in this gorgeous fall weather and explore some of the historic cemeteries in my area as well as those of my own family and generations back. But what I wanted to share with you is how to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made in the past, where I would go to the cemetery, do my research, take my photographs, but then when I'm back home, I realize I forgot to take a picture of a particular grave, or I forgot to take a picture of something that could help me, another clue that I remembered seeing but couldn't quite remember, because, you know, we never remember what we say we're going to remember, right? And when you have a camera right in your hand and your cell phone, there's no reason to miss out on taking photographs in that cemetery to make sure that we are getting everything that we possibly can while we're researching on site. Because the reality is we might not ever get back to that particular cemetery again. So we want to make sure we get it right the first time. I want to share with you today 6 photographs that I take in every cemetery that I research in. Whenever I visit a cemetery and I'm looking for my ancestors, I take these 6 types of photographs at minimum before I ever leave the cemetery. So let's get started. Number 1, I'm going to take a picture of the front gate. Now, when you arrive at that cemetery, and I recognize that this could be a family cemetery in the middle of a cornfield. That's okay. Take a picture of the entrance. It's going to do a couple things for you. It's going to jog your memory. It's going to kind of let you know if there's any signage there. You want to make sure you get a picture of all the signage. It could just be simply the name of the cemetery. But if it's a larger cemetery, it might give a history of the cemetery. It might give the date that it was founded or started. It might give phone numbers that you need to contact, that you could contact an office phone number. It might give you a map. They might have a map close to the entrance. Take a picture of that map. That's going to come in handy not only while you're there, but should you need to refer back to it in the future. So take a photograph of the front entrance and every piece of signage around it that could possibly help you. The second type of photo I usually take, I will take 2 to 3 photographs of the general appearance of the cemetery. I want to get kind of a general idea of the layout. So these are just more scenery type of photographs. Now, no, they're not necessarily of, my particular ancestors, depending on if it's a larger cemetery or even if it's a small cemetery. What these photographs tell me later on is it helps me remember, was it well kept up? What was the general age of the cemetery? Do I see new sections and old sections? Do I see just older sections, just newer sections? Those kinds of things. It just gives me that general layout so that I can kind of remember what I was looking at and maybe help remember some of the thoughts I was having as I went into that cemetery. So I just take really very easily, a few just kind of general overall landscape type photographs. Now, if I do notice something particular, maybe I notice that there is a smaller section, it's particularly the older section, I'll make sure I note that when I'm taking those landscape type of photographs. Are there areas that are better kept up than other areas? But that might be something for me to explore later should that need arise. So those are the types of photographs I take with that. Now, number 3. I'm taking photos of the gravestones, the ancestors' gravestones. That's what I'm there for, right? I'm researching my ancestors and I want to take photographs of their stones. Now, when I go to take a photograph of a tombstone or a gravestone, obviously I take a picture of the front of it. And sometimes I'll take it from different angles, just depending on lighting and what's going on around. But I always want to take, obviously, the front. But don't forget, go around behind the cemetery and take a picture of the back of the stone. Now, why do I recommend that? Well, one, you want to get all the information that could possibly be found on that stone. Sometimes families would put other information on the back of a tombstone. I found the children listed out on one of my ancestors on the back of a tombstone one time. I actually found my other ancestor on the back of the tombstone. I didn't realize that the way they had placed the marker, that the marker was between the two graves. And so I actually found one on one side and one on the other. So that was an interesting thing. So make sure you're going around and checking the back of that gravestone that you're photographing. Number 4, the next type of photograph that I take in that family cemetery, or any cemetery, is once I've finished taking the photographs of my ancestors' stones, I want to take photographs of the stones on either side. So I'm going to take a picture of the gravestones on either side of my ancestor, and the ones in front and the ones in back. So anybody that kind of rings them, I'm going to take photographs. Now, I may actually recognize those names. I may recognize them as ancestors. I may have no idea who that person is. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to take a photograph of it, because that could come into play in future research, and I don't want to miss a vital clue. Remember, when your ancestors were buried, they are there for a reason. Okay, they're there in that location for a specific reason, and when we are trying to break down brick walls, it's important that we understand the reasons for that. Now, number 5, take a photograph of every gravestone in the family plot. So if you find your ancestors buried in a family plot or a family cemetery, maybe the entire cemetery is basically a family plot or a family cemetery, take a photograph of every single person included in that area. Why? Because, again, they're there for a reason. They are in the family plot for a reason. They are likely related for some reason, or maybe super close friend who didn't have any place else to be buried. I don't know. But it's important that you take a photograph of every single one there, and then understand who they are, and if they have any, as you research them, to determine if there are any clues in their lives that could have bearing on your research. Okay, guys, and number 6. Take a picture of the family marker if there is one. Now, not all areas where your ancestors are buried will have the family name marker, but take a photograph of that. I've actually failed to do that in the past, and unfortunately missed out on some important information that I ended up having to go back for. But sometimes when you take that photograph, take the front of it, but again, walk around to the back of that marker and see if there's anything else there that could pertain to your research. As I said, I've seen everything from just a quote to listings of children to various things like that. So make sure you're getting a picture of that family marker as well. Okay, now that's the 6, but I've got a bonus one for you guys, number 7. And this is just something that I do. It's personal preference, but I like to take photographs of any of the tombstones, other tombstones in a cemetery that I find interesting and unique. Maybe it's the shape, because they can be quite artistic, but maybe there's an interesting symbol on them, and I find those interesting. And one of the reasons I do that and I take those is because I like to look them up and understand their meaning behind the symbolism, because the symbolism can actually tell us a lot about a person. And so the better I understand the general symbolism of these tombstones, whether it's the shape or whether it's just symbols that are on there, or how they're placed, then the better I understand the burial customs of my ancestors, which then helps me to understand and interpret the data correctly when I'm in that cemetery. So the better I understand the symbolism, and better I understand, the reason things were structured the way they were, the better I'm able to understand and make my way forward in my research. Now you have 6 plus 1, so 7 types of photographs to remember to take the next time you visit that family cemetery and start your research on site. Have a great day, guys. I hope that if you found this helpful, you will hit that subscribe button down below. That way you will know when other YouTube videos for the Are You My Cousin channel are posted, and I don't want you to miss a one. Have a great day, guys. Bye.